Hello there. Welcome back to Into the Black Archive. My name's James Stevenson, and joining me on this continued voyage of Doctor Who madness is my co-host Owen Cranston.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm all good. How are you?
Yeah, well enough.
Oh, that's good. So this episode which we've got is a little bit different to normal. We're not going to be reviewing any episodes since we've finished season 1.
Yeah, we've gone all the way through it, even the 2 episodes we didn't watch because of the fires.
So now we're going to review what's gone before and look forwards to the future.
That sounded like it was pre-written.
It wasn't. I made up something along.
Oh, that's pretty impressive, actually. That's quite well done.
Thank you.
It's very well versed. I'm not sure whether it fit, but it was well versed.
Thank you. I've got to be able to say something right. Something which I've learned while editing these is that I cannot speak in anywhere normal English.
I mean, neither can I, so...
You're better than me.
This is a test of us both.
The amount of times I have to edit out massive chunks where I'm just sat there trying to remember words.
Yeah, I would say that there's a good half an hour, if you've listened to all these episodes, first, why, and secondly, you've probably had a good half hour of your life given back by Owen taking out our silences.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
They're impressive. So, before we get mired into self-criticism and self-doubt, how are we going to go over this first glorious season of Who?
So we're going to We are going to split this episode into 2. So first of all, we're going to order the previous episode which we've watched for 6 episodes, not for full 8 because they don't exist. And then we'll be giving out some awards. These awards will continue on all the way through, and we'll see if they need to be revised or re-given to someone else.
Nice way to do it.
Yes.
So, do you want to go up in reverse order of episodes now?
So, worst, best. Worst first.
Worst best.
Worst.
Yeah, worst first. It has to be worst first.
Yeah. I reckon our worst will be a massive surprise to anyone who's ever listened.
Oh, I reckon so as well. It really is unexpected.
So, mine's for Daleks.
Yeah, so's mine.
Cool. No, it's the Edge of Destruction.
It's the Edge of Destruction.
Do we need to explain why?
Well, for people who haven't listened to the episode on Edge of Destruction, I recommend that you do because we say some very funny things about it. But to do it in summary, because to go over the suffering would be too great to do again.
So we essentially go over the problem for what the story was.
Yeah, so, it's bad.
So the story is essentially the TARDIS kind of explodes since it's gone back too far into time, and then there's a massive drama over what's happened, and we try to kick in and out several times, and then we realise a button got broken.
That's all. They managed to get 2 episodes out of that. A full
somehow
50 minutes of BBC television where they kind of have a psychological drama over not very much, and it doesn't really resolve into anything. You could tell that they'd overspent the budget, and what they had left was enough to just do this.
No new sets, we're just going to do it here, and then that's it.
I mean, it's impressive for a low-budget production, sure. It's just not impressive on any of the fundamental standards of TV making. But oh well. Yeah, everyone's allowed a bad one.
And I think the highlight for me is a speech, not a dramatic speech, but not about how the Doctor's going to save the world from ethical quandaries, but about how a button is broken.
It's genuinely some of the most impressive writing in the series, which is strange. But this is Who. You know, there's nothing that you can predict, and there's nothing that you can really rely on with this show, especially in 1964. So, Edge is at the bottom. What is second to bottom? I have a feeling that me and Owen are going to diverge so much from here on out.
This is where it's going to get into argument territory, because, as I said to you before we recorded, the best and worst for me was very easy. It was getting the in-betweens.
Yeah, the in-betweens are where the excitement is. So, do you want to go first? And then I'll retort.
I'll say. For sensorites.
Oh, it's the same for me, actually.
Is it? Yeah,
yeah, it is. Sensorites.
Because I think the issue for me is that it is, for the first half, it is almost perfect. It is probably up there with on the top half. But then for the second half, we're essentially just wandering around for the entire episode, not really doing anything. And then at the end, it just kind of completes itself in 5 seconds.
Yeah, it's got the issue that the two Terry Nation stories we're reviewing have, where there's a bit too many episodes for how much story there is, and so as a result, you get like episodes 3, 4, and 5. Stuff happens, but not a lot actually happens. We're pretty much in the same place narratively after 3 episodes, whereas the first 2 actually move really well and do a lot and set up a really interesting story and a really interesting arc. And then it never really ends how you're meant to. They kind of just throw in this out of left field, oh, these people are here, and it kind of resolves from there. We don't want to give too many spoilers because you should go and listen to the episodes for those.
Are we actually going to have any debate during this? That's the question. What is your number 4?
I hope so. What's your number 4?
What's your 4? You go first. I went first last time.
I'll go first this time. Okay, it is An Unearthly Child.
God damn it.
Is it really? Oh, for goodness sake. This is worrying me now. Are we really going to do an entire podcast about here are things that 2 men agree on?
So the worst thing for us here is that we did not go through and discuss this beforehand. We
haven't talked about this.
We deliberately kept this separate from each other.
Oh, it's like a slow motion train wreck, this.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's discuss the things we agree on again.
So, I just think this one here is boring.
Do you think? I think boring is slightly strong.
I just think it's a bit bland. It's very bland. There's just no... It never really picks up pace, does it? There's no edge of the seat drama.
Yeah, it's more to do with the setup of the show, which is why I don't think it's boring, because those first, or especially that first episode, does so much work in establishing the show and the concept and the characters. When we get to the actual story and the actual adventure, because we're in the Stone Age or with the cavemen, it doesn't really support it. It's not the best opener, but it's solid enough. I do like it.
Yeah, I think it's got some of the best pacing in between all 3 episodes. It's just not much there to fill it up.
Yeah, there's not enough going on where you'd think it was absolutely first rate, but it's good. And I don't want to say that placing it 4th makes it poor. I still think it's a good story.
So I'm getting worried now because I can't see how our top 3 is going to deviate that much.
Oh, no, yeah, I'm worried here. If we've actually agreed on all 6...
This is going to be the most boring podcast episode you could have done because it's just us 2 going, yeah, we agree.
Yeah, we agree on this. Right, do you want to go first this time?
Yeah, I'll go first. Daleks.
Oh, thank God. Thank God that's not my 3. We disagree on something. Mine's Aztecs.
Okay. Why is that?
Why is it Aztecs? The reason Aztecs is 3 for me is that it's a good episode and is very well paced and is a lot of fun, but it's a little bit forgettable afterwards because it's kind of a one and done, and the characters aren't particularly memorable. They're fun while they're on the screen, but they don't really stick. Let's face it, the entire thing is resolved because they now can open a door that they couldn't initially, which is it's a weak ending.
So, I do agree with you there, but I think the Aztecs were one of a few which kept me gripped throughout.
I agree with that.
I felt if the pacing of Daleks was better, I think the weird thing about the Daleks isn't the pacing is wrong. It just feels like there's gaps missing where there should be action. Yeah,
I think the pacing of Daleks is actually quite good, but there are some episodes where there just isn't a lot of action where there could be. So you do get kind of lulls in the story, whereas in Aztecs it's pretty consistent throughout, and I actually think Aztecs is the best paced story in the whole series.
Yeah.
Because it really does. It keeps you there the whole way. But the reason I've put Daleks at 2 and not Aztecs is simply because it's the Daleks and they're introduced really well and they're hanging over the whole episode. The kind of mythology of that episode with the Thals and all that kind of stuff is the best developed in the whole series.
I think the issue for me with the Daleks is that the only things that stand out to me is the Daleks. The story, while interesting, was once again a little bit bland. The Thals were there.
The Thals were there. That's something we can agree on.
And The pacing was all right, but as I say, it kind of felt like it was missing set pieces, particularly towards the end.
See, I like the cliff one, or the one with the great big hole that the guy falls into.
But then there's not much either side of that.
Yeah, it's kind of build up to it. There are interesting scenes. I'm still amazed by the scene where Zoe. No, that's not a person's name in the story. I'm looking.
Is it Susan?
Yeah. No, I'm even lying about that. What was the name?
Is this what happens when I don't?
The female fowl who Ian basically tries to offer up as bait to convince them to fight.
I honestly can't remember. So we disagree on one.
Yeah, we do disagree on one, thank God, because otherwise we'd just be in the most dull podcast you'd ever see.
So what's your number 2?
So my number 2 is the Daleks.
Yeah.
And your number 2 is Aztecs.
No.
It's not?
No.
Oh, that is interesting. I thought we had an agreed one.
No, mine was The Keys of Marinus.
Wow.
Was my number 2.
Why is it 2 for you then, Owen?
Mo, I'll be honest with you. Pretty much the ending.
It does resolve a little quickly.
I think the ending, and I know you like it, I'm still not the biggest fan of the ice story.
Yeah, see, I really like the ice story.
I still feel that one there was a little bit flat.
I think I like it because it actually does that psychological element really decently. Mm-hmm. But I think that's something you could interpret, because if you don't take that leap and go where you want it to go, I just don't think you'll get on board, and you'll just think, well, why are they waiting about here? Obviously, this guy's sketchy. Whereas I'm thinking, well, okay, I've seen enough things to know that a guy might look sketchy but turn out to be good, or otherwise, or there might be something completely out of left field coming, so I don't know. So at least it plays in that wheelhouse. And I also like the fact that Keyes, pretty much episode by episode, feels almost like a different story, but in a way that's connected to the others. Yeah,
which is a good point of it, but I also think that means it's a bit all over jumpy as well.
It can be a bit, but I think they do hold enough to be consistent for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Aztecs is your 1. What are the great big strengths of Aztecs that would put that at 1 for you?
It just kept me engaged, unlike the other ones.
So you're saying in every single other episode we've watched for this podcast, there were moments where you've gone, nope, I am out.
I'll be honest with you. I think that is correct. Even on Aztecs, I think I skipped ahead at one point because I got a little bit bored.
See, I haven't skipped a single second of any episode because I am a dutiful watcher. I don't want to miss anything just in case they do something good, even if I have a confident feeling they won't. That is frankly betrayal.
So is Keys Marinus your first then?
Yeah, Keys is 1 for me. I think because of the ambition of it, and it felt the most complete. They went for the most things. Some things work better than others, I'll agree, and it can be a bit jumpy, and some of the characters aren't very memorable. But the whole idea of they get there, and we've got, mysterious old alien man saying, you need to find these keys. Yes, it's a bit cliche, but it's just a good setup for an adventure story.
I think, honestly, it's just because I much prefer 4-part setup. 4-parter setup than a 6-parter. And for 6-parters for me just always seem to drag on just that little bit too far.
I do agree that 4-parter's the way to go. And that is why Aztecs is the best placed. Paced. It's the best paced. But Keys does do more with its 6 episodes. Like, it justifies having 6.
Yeah.
And there are some episodes where I'm like, could that have been like the courtroomy 5 and 6 could have maybe even been 1 episode.
Yeah.
To be fair, but there are really good bits in it. They deal as well, very impressively, with having the literal doctor off on holiday for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And make that work. And actually, those 2 episodes might be the best ones in the entire story. Yeah.
They really went out for the Dr. Light stuff.
Yeah, Dr. Light was probably the better stuff in this series. So that must worry you. Best things about Doctor Who, when the Doctor's not there. Preferably.
So yours... So mine is Aztecs number 1. Yours...
is Keys of Marinus.
My number 2 is Keys of Marinus.
And my number 2 is The Daleks.
My number 3 is The Daleks.
And my number 3 is The Aztecs.
My number 4 is The Unearthly Child.
Which it is also for me.
And then we've both got the same Centuries for number 5 and Edge of Destruction for number 6.
Censor rights, Owen. Censor rights.
Censor rights. Shall we move on to the awards?
Oh, absolutely. Love me award.
So these are awards we're going to give out for different categories. Some are serious, some are not. And they will carry over to next season. See if we can kick someone off their award podium.
All right.
The metaphorical podium.
Only a metaphorical podium?
Yeah, we don't have a budget for a proper one.
Well, just not even like a little... Do you remember those little toy podiums?
I've got a can of Coke. We can shove them on a can of Coke.
Just get the piece of paper and print them out.
Yeah.
Can of Coke. Here's the damn award, lads.
Right. So, let's give the best award out for Best Companion.
Okay. I'll go first this one.
Considering we've only got 3, I'm fairly sure I know what you're going to go with.
I'm going to go with Ian Chesterton.
So, I am going with Ian Chesterton. Yeah, no, we've only got 3 companions so far.
Yeah, it's Ian. I would like to say Barbara got really good towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
I did think about it, but Ian for the whole season.
I think the issue is that Ian was good for the entirety of the season. Barbara was only good for the second half of the season.
Yeah, Barbara really grows because she is weakest in the first episode and probably strongest in... Actually, probably Aztecs rather than Sensorites because that's her holiday one. But she was strong, though. We both dislike it, but she was also very strong during the Edge of Destruction. Yeah, that was when she started to grow, and I think she probably had a better episode than Ian in that regard. Or at least I preferred her to Ian in that episode, and she was doing more things that I liked. So yeah, I will give it for Ian for the whole episode series though, because he's pretty good in every episode and just has an awful lot to do pretty much all the time and does it quite well.
Based on what you've just said, I'm fairly sure you can guess who your worst companion is.
Yeah, I think you're going to agree with me again on this one.
Yes.
Susan.
Yes.
Susan. I just don't think by this point the writers have figured out what to do with her yet.
I agree. I think they've kind of screwed themselves over in the position which they've put themselves in with having Susan being the granddaughter. So it means inherently which the Doctor needs to make sure she's protected. Yeah,
which means she doesn't get involved in as much. But even then, there are creative ways to figure that out. You know, you can have her be rebellious, for instance, or she can be tired of being in the ship. There are things you can do with that character, but by this point, just there hasn't been a lot of exploration. The most exploration we've had of Susan was in the first 5 minutes when Ian and Barbara are talking about her rather than us seeing her.
Yeah.
And her main role in the episodes is to scream a lot.
Best setting. So this is not based on story, it's just based on the best sort of just being chucked on there, the best bit of world building sort of.
Yeah, that's how I interpreted it.
That's how I interpreted it as well.
And it's a really decent question. So would you like to go first on this one?
I don't know, honestly.
You have to give an answer. Come on.
Yeah. Especially since I made these awards.
Yeah.
I'm going to say probably Keys of Marinus.
Okay. But there's so many settings in that you've almost got to pick one setting from it.
Honestly, I think the first separate, when you've got the Brains of Morphos.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a really interesting concept with the brainwashing, which they sort of go into a little bit more detail of later on, I think, with the Macra.
Yeah, they'll go into that more.
Before they ask, they don't exist. I think Keys of Marinus with that first one, I think was very well built up, especially for just a single episode story. It was very good from the outset.
Well, I think that's why I put Marinus at 1 again, because all the world building in each episode is really strong. I've gone with the Winter Ice Planet from Marinus because you know how much I do like that story, and it is a lot of it is to do with the setting. They kind of just go, look, we're in a bit of a barren planet here where you have to rely on people because the conditions outside are so treacherous. So it's almost, so that adds to the psychological aspect of the story where you think, well, okay, if you don't trust him, you could run off somewhere, but if it's so treacherous and you don't know where you are, do you really have an option? Are you stuck on this one? Yeah.
And just like that, oh, sorry.
No, sorry, you carry on.
I was just going to move us on to the worst setting.
Okay. You tell you what, you go again. I did the first two, so you do the next two.
So I've literally just changed this one, just as we were talking.
Oh, really?
Yes.
You're very decisive today.
Indecisive.
She can't decide.
I think Sensorites.
Really? Like the whole thing?
I think it's just very by the book sci-fi.
Okay. The planet, yeah. I'll go with you with the planet because it's just kind of, yeah, this is a planet. It doesn't really go into it.
I think it doesn't... It's very by the book, and the things which could work just don't make much sense.
I'll go with that, but I'd like to make a big case for the episode in the ship at the start. Because the ship, usually I would say, that's cliched. But because of the setup with the Sensorites being, well, they can control you, and that is an interesting setting. That is a good setting because of that.
That's actually something that just occurred to me.
Yeah.
We never actually sort of see them control anyone in that episode.
No, not really. It's kind of dangled in front of our faces. There are moments, but I think mainly they do it with John.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was very too by the book.
Yeah, I can agree with you on that one. In a lot of ways, they could have done a lot more with Sensorite, particularly from episode 3 on, a lot more, and it's kind of wasted. It's okay, but it's kind of a wasted story.
What did you have for worst setting?
My one is actually the Stone Age setting in Unearthly Child.
Ooh. What I had before was Edge of Destruction, but I'd changed my mind. Why that? Do you think it wasn't explored enough? Because that's what I would say about that one.
In a sense, but also it was just... because it felt like the most cliched thing to do in the first episode was just, let's go back to the Stone Age. And then it was just this quite underdeveloped, we have sand, some trees, there's a jungle aspect, there's a tribe. There's no real world building other than, here are old humans. Old humans are dumb. Old humans think that you put a firelight in a skull and it's a living body. There's not much world building going on, and really, it's just an excuse for us to kind of get to know the characters, which is fine for a first episode.
Yeah.
But the setting isn't doing any of the work in that episode. It is just the character work.
Yeah.
For me.
Which it's fair enough for a first episode, I think.
Yeah, it is fair enough. But
I think if the Unearthly Child wasn't a first episode, it would definitely be down in the list of being not very good, a lot further down.
Yeah, from episodes 2, 3, 4 are probably 5th, like below Sensorite. Yeah. But you add episode 1 in there, which is genuinely good, then it does lift it.
So, what do you have for best story? So this next award is best story end, which this season, much like the current modern day season, has very strong issues with.
Yes, there's not a lot of good contenders for this one. I have gone...
I think you're going to disagree with my one.
I have a feeling we will as well. I've gone for the Daleks.
Okay. I've gone for an Unearthly Child.
I see why you've gone with that.
Because it does ramp up properly, and it does ramp down properly in a way which makes sense.
Yeah.
Which I feel like all the other ones spent all their time ramping up, and then in the last 5 seconds go, oh, now we need to go back down again. I think my issue... I nearly did Dalek, but I think my issue is with it still is it just kind of makes the Daleks look... We spent this entire 7 episodes building these Daleks up as being the strongest things possible. And then we flip a switch and they are next to useless.
Now, I do agree with you in that aspect. It does weaken the Daleks as characters. But at the very least, I can say that the reason that they're weakened is because the Doctor and the companions
Yeah.
and the Thals have figured out how. So at least they've
Yeah.
learned how to do that with knowledge. So it's justifiable.
For Daleks was nearly my one for best story end, because for ramping up does happen, but for ramping up does lead seeds onto what the ending is, which is the static electricity. We might be able to turn the static electricity off. It keeps being referred to, unlike in some of the other ones where it just kind of goes,
Oh, here
no,
it is.
we now need to end this.
Yeah.
We need to end this now.
The Dalek one is well set up, and I think it's got the best ending in terms of the spacing. Because you get time for everyone to kind of part ways and have an epilogue, and we see where the future steps are for characters, which is nice. And I think because it is such a long story and goes through a lot, it deserves to have that kind of feeling of completion at the end, which it does well. So for me, it's Daleks. I think it's really well written, that last episode, apart from maybe the beginning of the Daleks.
The worst story end.
Oh, it's got to be Sensorites, hasn't it?
I put Keys of Marius.
What? I mean, it's not great, but it's not that bad. Come on.
Yeah, I did argue between the two. My issues with Keys of Marius is, as you say, with Daleks, they've got that time to part ways properly. In Keys of Marius, we spent 6 episodes with these... Not 6 episodes, 5 episodes with these people which essentially become second companions.
Yeah.
And then that's it.
It is rushed, and they kind of just get out of there, and there's no real closure, especially for like Carol and John, for example. We just get a brief indication of where they'll go, and that's it, and we leave them be.
The thing for me is that they don't even world build out what's outside of this massive base where the supercomputer is. So we're not even aware of there being other areas around this place where they could disappear off into.
Yeah, really, it's really unknown.
So the fact which that is completely unknown, while I think the ending to Century Rights is massively overly rushed, it does make sense within the story if they had stretched it out.
Yeah. Do you know what I just said? I just said Carol and John, who are Sensorites characters, for the ending of Bloody Mariners. Who are the...
I was thinking...
Yeah, I was just... After I'd said it...
Out on... And I can't remember who the woman is.
Ugh, research. It's your favourite episode, James.
So what we're learning here, guys, is that James's favourite episode is so forgettable, which he's forgotten the characters' names.
What's up? Right, lad. As I knew from the start, we got Altos and we've got Sabitha.
Yes.
Shall we cut back in?
Oh, I'm including a lot of this.
I know you are. Right. So, Altos and Sabitha, they're linked by the end and they've had that development, but like you say, they've been left to their own devices, really. We don't get closure with those characters. But Sensorites is just... It's just like they didn't plan how to end it. That's why I put it in the back, because it is literally just, oh, here we are, we're the humans, we've been here this time, oh, we've cleared this up.
Actually,
it's good now.
That is a good point. I did forget about the fact which they do go from, we've got a problem with an advisor who's lying to us, the administrator who's lying to us. And they went, next scene, we've dealt with him. Actually, no, I agree now. Worst story is Aztecs.
They've just gone, we've dealt with him.
I completely forgot about that entire section.
Yeah.
So I agree with
when
you.
You said Mariners. I was like, it's not a great ending or anything, and it does weaken the story. But come on, Sensorites one's awful.
I completely forgot about the bit where they just can't be bothered to complete the story.
They're just like,
I completely forgot about that element.
We've run out of episode time. Oh no, we've dealt with the administrator. Just leave, everyone. Out you get.
Yeah. I completely forgot about that bit. Hence why Keys Marius, which does still have a terrible ending.
It's not great, but it's not as bad as Sensorites. Only a few more to go.
Yeah, we've only got 3, so these ones here are more of the casual fun ones, I think. Particularly this next one. I love this next one. Best Scream.
Which Susan one did you pick?
I didn't choose Susan.
Susan does 90% of the screaming in Who?
I don't care.
Who have you picked?
The Vor, who gets knocked down the trap door.
I forgot about the Vor who gets knocked down the trap door.
Because, yes, I did build this section thinking about Susan, but then I remembered the wall falling down the trapdoor. And I felt that was perfect and put that in.
Can I change my answer?
What was your best scream
My
originally?
one was going to be, do you remember when they're in Marinus and Susan's by like that glass beach and she tries to have a paddle?
Oh, yes.
And she just absolutely launches, but no, it's the Vord.
Yeah.
I think it's the combination of the Vord launching into this scream and the way he so cheaply falls through this trapdoor effect.
It felt like they cut out a guy in paper and then just dropped him away from a camera.
It's genuinely incredible. The only thing he does to get him down is essentially just sort of move and give him a gentle nudge, and then he's falling vertically down.
Yeah.
Oh my word. Yeah, if you haven't listened to our Marinus episode, where we go on about that madness, do listen to it. It's one of the best and most deluded ones we've recorded. We do have a long laugh about that scream in the episode, I seem to remember.
Yes. So, I think these next two are probably going to be our most controversial.
Yeah.
For worst thing the Doctor did.
I have a pretty strong opinion on this, and there are a few things, because William Hartnell's a grumpy old twat. But what's yours?
The fact which she threatened and tried to throw Ian out of a TARDIS, not only in one episode, but in two.
Yes.
Like, yes, we had the Edge of Destruction one, but I seem to remember him doing it again, either at the end of Sensorites.
Yeah, he does.
So he tries to do the same thing twice. He tries to throw out Ian.
The cliffhanger ending of Sensorites is just Ian says, "Oh, we never know where we're going," and then he immediately turns around. "What did you say to me, boy?"
Yeah.
Well, you get off the ship then.
Yeah. I was like, oh, okay, that's a bit extreme. Was that your thing?
No, actually, it's not.
Oh.
But that is a good one and is up there. My one is when in An Unearthly Child, where there is a poor caveman lying on the floor, and the Doctor's response to this minor inconvenience to their escape is to grab a rock and threaten to beat him over the head with it.
That was my second. That was my second.
That is, as John C. Reilly said in Guardians of the Galaxy once, that's murder, which is still illegal.
The reason why that one there isn't my top is because Ian is someone which the Doctor has now travelled with for at least 3 episodes.
That's true.
And his decision is to throw him out into a void and kill him that way. Which, to me, killing someone who you know versus killing someone who you've just met on the floor is a little bit different.
I do agree with that, actually. I don't know, maybe it's the imagery of just... I'm trying to imagine what would have happened if he actually went through with it. I'm just watching this caveman being clubbed.
Yes.
In the most brutal way, as opposed to Ian just sort of... and we'll have like a Vord-style green screen into the void if it was to happen. Which would be funny, but it would undercut the actual harshness of it. Yeah, you're probably right, but I'm going to stick with mine still.
Okay, so let's go for the final award, and we'll just discuss general season. For Let's Retcon This Now award. This is the thing. Good. This is the thing which we think Doctor Who should not have done. It's the biggest mistake they did for this season.
Okay.
And overall.
What's yours? The biggest mistake?
I alluded to it earlier. Making Susan the Doctor's granddaughter.
100% agree with that.
It limits her character so much in what they can do with her. Because no matter what happens, the Doctor needs to seem at least slightly parental towards her.
This seems to be a consequence of the kind of focus grouping that went into the season planning initially.
There is a reason behind it, because I actually looked into this. So initially, Susan wasn't going to be the Doctor's granddaughter.
Okay.
But the show's creators felt they needed an excuse for a younger woman to be travelling with an older man.
Oh, without it seeming a bit... I mean, Lolita had come out a year ago at that point, so I understand why that might be there.
So that's why. And it's also, I found this as I was doing my research. Also, why Carol Ann Ford left so early was because it wasn't what she was promised. She was promised she'd be able to be sort of level to the Doctor and slightly being able to communicate with her mind, which we see a little bit in Sensorites. So I think this one here, potentially, if we didn't have this, we could have had Susan for longer, and also it was just allowed her character and even the Doctors to just expand a little bit.
And also, I even think the decision to make Susan the Doctor's granddaughter has complications for the series now, even in 2021, because there is no other Doctor family we've really been introduced to.
Even then, haven't they? I seem to. You can correct me if I'm wrong because I didn't look into this bit here. Didn't they effectively retcon this by saying this? By saying Susan isn't the Doctor's granddaughter, she is someone else's granddaughter who he took up with him.
When did they do that? Because I feel like I missed that episode.
I seem to remember hearing something about it.
If they have...
where she was a Time Lord's councillor, Time Lord President's daughter or something along those lines, and they ran off to get something along those lines, and then they fled to get away from him. I could be completely wrong.
It would be interesting, but I almost think that would diminish it even further. I think you've already kind of made the error. So, retconning should only be done, in my opinion, when it absolutely, absolutely needs to be to make your series work. Otherwise, you've kind of got to own your mistakes. And this is the reason why you should plan your episodes in advance and know where you're going. Like, for example, as a writer myself, I have plans for 4 more long drives, just in case I make them, because I don't want to have to go back if I do and start retconning things because I've messed something up or there's an inconsistency. I at least want to be planned if that happens. So you always have to be planned in advance for these kinds of things.
So I'm reading into season 5, see if I'm right.
Yeah. That was also a little long drive exclusive there, lads. No one else knew about that until now.
Yeah, so on the Doctor Who Wiki, ultimate source for all Doctor Who stuff, after she left Gallifrey with the First Doctor, records of her true identity were deliberately obscured. She is possibly the daughter of a Lord President and was born with a different name than Susan.
Clever.
So they sort of have retconned that already.
Does that make it disqualifiable then? Do we have to disqualify if they've already retconned
because at this point it hasn't been retconned and it's still a thing.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, all right.
What do you want them to retcon?
Mine was a slightly more of a joke answer. But I think my real answer would be exactly what you just said, because Susan being the Doctor's granddaughter is the biggest problem with the show. Yeah. And it's the biggest problem with the writing. It affects all the episodes. It is frustrating. And if I was writing, say I went in there as part of a writer's room, and I was being tasked to write a script and I had to accommodate for all those things, that would be the hardest thing to work around, because it limits her so much. My joke answer was, can we retcon the entirety of Edge of Destruction so it never happens?
I felt you would do that. I felt you'd do an entire episode.
Just get it out of there, because it doesn't progress anybody. It would be the easiest retcon in the world.
I think it progresses their relationships, so that's why I didn't put down that, because it sort of helped with their relationship, particularly towards the end.
It's kind of schmaltzy towards the end more than anything else. I think they could have done that work in Marinus, to be honest. I think there's enough room in there, because they go on so many different places. You can do that work inside the action rather than have to completely slow it down and be like, oh, this is a character work section. Yeah. Just Edge, we really could have done without it. And it's only 2 episodes. It's so inconsequential.
I also feel like they could have done it in a better way.
Massively so.
Like, there's just so many areas of it which just don't pay off. But we're not here to rant about Edge of Destruction.
That's true. We've done it enough. And you can go and listen to the Edge of Destruction episode if you really want to hear it.
So that's the end for your awards. So they'll be getting their Coke can podiums shortly.
We're actually sticking with that. So
yes.
All right, fine. We'll do it. Why not?
So what did you think about the season overall? As a quick final thing.
I think it's a very decent start. Could have been better. There are issues with it, but we've gone over them. It's a show that's still finding its feet at this point.
Yeah.
But it is Doctor Who.
you can tell they haven't planned a lot in advance.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of going where the scripts that fall on their desks.
But I think there's moments in it that are genuinely brilliant.
Yeah.
And you do want to keep watching. And that's the main thing. Even with the criticisms I've got of it, if this was a new show, I'd still be interested in it because there's enough development there.
So, shall we just close this out in Black Archive tradition? How do you rank this season out of 10? 7, just about. I would probably say around 5.
5?
The pacing is all over the place for most of the episodes. They haven't learned how to end the season yet, an episode properly yet. That's ignoring the cheapness and everything else, which I can let it go by on. The companions, they can work, but they're very selective in when they get companions to work properly.
Let's just say I gave it 2 extra points for potential.
I don't do that. I only do what I'm given, and it's not amazing.
That's the title of your sex tape, and on that note, it's time to end into the Black Archive Series 1.
We'll be taking a week off, so you won't see us next week. But we'll be
you won't
back.
see us ever. You just won't hear us for a week.
Yeah. You won't hear us next week, but we'll be back for the week after with Dalek Invasion of Earth.
They're back.
The film.
We're back. Yeah, it is the film, isn't it?
Yeah, we're watching the film.
This will be exciting. Yeah, so
we're not watching the film. We're not watching the film. We're just watching the episodes. I'm just joking.
Oh, right.
I'm just messing with you.
You know, I mean, we've done 1 season of this. Don't make it be the last. If you enjoyed... Aww.
If we make it for last, can we make sure we have a made-for-TV film and then have a 6-year break? Well, there's audio dramas which get released, and then we'll come back with a handsome Scottish fella who's trying to play a handsome English fella.
Yeah, something like that. Although I'd prefer it to be a kind of skinheady northerner, and he actually plays it northern. And then maybe for the I don't know, someone a bit working class. Let's go with that.
Yeah. So with that, goodbye.
If you enjoyed Into the Black Archive season, please get in touch with us. You can get in touch via email at blackarchivepod blackarchivepod@gmail.com is our email, and at blackarchivepod is our Twitter URL, which you can also go and hit us up at.
Remember to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, which includes Apple Podcasts now.
Yes,
Yay!
We're available on Apple Podcasts now.
Finally.
It's been a while. So if you do get your podcasts on Apple, hello, and subscribe if you like it.
See you not next week, but the week after. Goodbye.
See you the week after. Goodbye. Congratulations, you've made it to the end of time. Well, just this episode, really. It's not that dramatic. But thanks very much for getting here. If you've liked what you heard, you can get in touch with us on Twitter at blackarchivepod or via email at blackarchivepod@gmail.com. And, of course, remember to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.